The day humanity feared had arrived. It started like any other day. The sun rose, people went about their daily routines, and life seemed normal. But everything changed when the message came. The galaxy had sent it. A cold, emotionless message from the United Alien Alliance, the most powerful coalition of alien species in the universe. Their message was simple. We've given up on you. You're on your own now. There was no explanation, no reason. Just those words. Earth, humanity, was alone in the vast, cold expanse of space. The Earth was not prepared for this. The news spread quickly, and panic began to grow. How could it be? The most advanced and powerful species in the galaxy had abandoned them. For centuries, Earth had been part of the Galactic Alliance, protected by the alien civilizations, receiving help with technology and knowledge. But now, all that support was gone. The United Earth Federation, the government of humanity, had to make a quick decision. They called a meeting of their top officials and military leaders, trying to figure out what to do next. Days later, the true horror of the situation became clear. The aliens were not just leaving. They were coming. A massive invasion fleet appeared on the edges of Earth's solar system. The fleet was overwhelming, hundreds of ships, each larger and more advanced than anything humanity had ever seen. These alien invaders were part of the Gorlax Empire, a brutal, war-hungry species known for their ability to destroy entire planets. The Gorlax had one mission: to conquer Earth. They believed humanity was weak and easy to defeat. The galaxy had abandoned them, and now the Gorlax were going to finish what others had started. Humanity would be wiped out, just like that. As the news of the invasion spread, fear gripped Earth. People looked to the Federation for answers, but there were none. Earth had no allies left. The Federation had spent years depending on alien assistance, and now that help was gone. The weapons they had were outdated, their ships old, and their defenses weak. The Federation had always relied on the help of other species, and now they were alone. It was clear to everyone. The fight for Earth's survival had begun, and the odds were stacked against them. In the heart of the Federation's command center, the leaders gathered, trying to come up with a plan. General Kessler, one of the Federation's top military leaders, stood at the front. His face was grim, his thoughts racing. He had seen war before, but never like this. The Gorlax were a nightmare, and their numbers were nearly impossible to comprehend. Earth's military was no match for them. Kessler turned to his officers, his voice steady despite the fear rising in his chest. "We can't fight them with the weapons we have," Kessler said. "We don't have enough ships, we don't have the firepower, but we do have one thing the Gorlax don't: determination. We'll fight with everything we've got. We'll use every ship, every weapon, and every soldier. Earth isn't going down without a fight." The officers nodded, knowing that their mission was clear: protect Earth at all costs. But even as they spoke of fighting back, they knew the truth. The Federation's military was a fraction of the size of the Gorlax fleet. They were going to have to rely on their ingenuity, their ability to adapt and improvise. And even then, it might not be enough. The first wave of alien ships entered Earth's atmosphere 2 days later. The Gorlax fleet was unlike anything humanity had ever seen. Their ships were massive, covered in dark, gleaming armor, and armed with weapons capable of wiping out entire cities with a single strike. The Federation had no way to stop them. The first cities to be hit were devastated. In just hours, New York, Tokyo, and Paris were reduced to rubble. The Gorlax didn't care for negotiations or diplomacy. They wanted to destroy. As the attacks began, humanity's leaders scrambled to respond. Emergency broadcasts went out, telling everyone to evacuate the cities. But it was too late. The Gorlax were too fast. Their ships moved through the skies like shadows, firing on anything that moved. Earth's cities burned as the alien ships fired their powerful weapons from above. The people of Earth, terrified and confused, didn't know what to do. They had never faced anything like this before. But in the face of terror, something incredible began to happen. In every corner of the planet, humans began to fight back. It started small. A group of soldiers in a small village, using makeshift weapons, managed to take down an alien scout ship. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Word spread, and soon more people were joining the fight. In every city, in every town, people were picking up whatever they could find and standing up against the alien invaders. Farmers, teachers, doctors, and students all took up arms. They didn't have the advanced technology the Gorlaks had, but they had something the aliens didn't: the will to survive. In the middle of the chaos, a young woman named Mia watched as the streets around her burned. She was a mechanic by trade, not a soldier. But when the aliens had attacked her hometown, she couldn't just stand by. She had to do something. Mia gathered a group of survivors and took them to her workshop. There, she began to work on something, using the few resources she had. She was determined to help. She didn't know if it would work, but she wasn't going to let her people die without a fight. Mia's invention was simple: a makeshift missile launcher, built from scraps of metal and old engines. It wasn't anything fancy, but it was enough to take down one of the alien ships. When Mia and her group fired the missile at a passing Gorlak ship, they were amazed to see it explode in midair. It was a small victory, but it meant something. The aliens were not invincible. They could be fought. Back at the Federation's command center, General Kessler watched the reports coming in. The situation was worse than he had imagined. Entire cities were being destroyed, and the Federation's military was being overwhelmed. But then, something incredible happened. The report from Mia's group came through. The missile they had built had taken down a Gorlak ship. It wasn't much, but it was something. It was a glimmer of hope. General Kessler turned to his officers. "We may be losing this battle, but we're not giving up," he said. "We have the spirit of humanity on our side. We may not have the technology, but we have the will to fight. And that's something the Gorlaks don't understand." As the days passed, humanity's resistance began to grow. People all over the world were coming together, building makeshift weapons and organizing guerrilla attacks against the invaders. It was far from enough to stop the Gorlaks, but it was a start. The people of Earth refused to accept defeat. They refused to be wiped out. And the Gorlaks, despite their superior technology, were starting to realize something they hadn't expected. Humanity wasn't going to give up without a fight. In the midst of the chaos, the Federation continued to work on a plan. They knew they couldn't win this war with brute force alone. They needed something more. They needed a strategy, something the Gorlaks wouldn't expect. But for now, all they could do was fight. And with every passing day, humanity was proving that no matter how much the galaxy had given up on them, they would never give up on themselves. As the battle for Earth raged on, the people of the planet started to realize that the war was far from over. The Gorlaks invaders, though powerful, were not invincible. Despite the overwhelming odds, humanity was finding ways to fight back. The first victory, small as it was, had given the people hope. They were not alone in their struggle. Each day, new stories of resistance spread across the world. Everywhere, people were doing their part to defend Earth. Mia's group, the ones who had built the missile launcher, became a symbol of the human spirit. They were just ordinary people, no soldiers, no fighters by profession, but they had managed to bring down one of the most powerful ships in the Gorlaks fleet. News of their success traveled fast. Soon, more groups of civilians were following in their footsteps. Some built weapons from scrap metal, others used old military equipment they found, and a few even managed to steal alien technology. The Gorlaks didn't know what to expect anymore. The Federation, still struggling to regroup, looked to these new heroes for inspiration. They had always relied on advanced technology and superior firepower, but now they were seeing the power of human ingenuity. The resistance, though still small, was growing. People were becoming braver, taking risks to fight back. It was as if the more they were pushed down, the harder they fought. General Kessler knew that Earth's forces couldn't win the war just by relying on makeshift weapons. But he also knew that every victory, no matter how small, added to their strength. The Federation began organizing more coordinated attacks. They began sending small groups of soldiers to strategic locations where they could strike at weak points in the Gorlax invasion. The Gorlax, at first overconfident, were caught off guard by these guerrilla tactics. Mia, still working with her group, didn't stop. She felt a fire inside her, knowing that the fight was bigger than just her home. It was about survival, about the future of the entire planet. She had been working on something new, something bigger. She had managed to reverse engineer a piece of alien technology she had found in the wreckage of a downed Gorlax ship. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. She had learned enough to create a prototype that could potentially change the tide of the war. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Mia and her team gathered in her workshop, surrounded by parts and tools. They worked quietly, but there was a sense of urgency in the air. The Gorlax were regrouping, and they were preparing for a final massive assault on Earth. Time was running out. Maya looked at her team, each one focused on their task. There was Ryan, the mechanic who helped her build the missile launcher, and Sarah, an ex-soldier who had lost her family to the Gorlax invasion. There was also Lucas, a young engineer who had joined their group after seeing the destruction of his city. They were all driven by the same goal, to stop the Gorlax and save their world. "We're close," Maya said, looking over the plans for the new weapon she had been designing. It wasn't perfect, but it was a step forward. This could be the key to taking down the Gorlax once and for all. Ryan wiped sweat from his brow and nodded. "We've got to hurry. They'll be here soon. We don't have much time." The group worked well into the night, piecing together the weapon with the parts they had. It was a long shot, but Mia believed it could work. The weapon would be able to disrupt the Gorlax's advanced shielding, making their ships vulnerable to attack. It was a risky plan, but it was the only one they had. Meanwhile, in the Federation's command center, General Kessler and his officers were scrambling to find a way to stop the Gorlax fleet. The aliens were getting closer, and Earth's defenses were still nowhere near ready. Kessler had received the report about Mia's group and their new weapon. He knew it could be their best chance. He ordered his troops to make contact with their team, hoping they could bring the weapon into the Federation's hands. But there was a problem. Mia and her group were deep in the heart of enemy territory, and the Gorlax were everywhere. Getting the weapon to the Federation would be a dangerous mission, one that would require all the courage they had. Mia, however, was not one to back down. She knew the risks, but she also knew that if the weapon could work, it could change everything. They couldn't let the Gorlax win. The people of Earth had proven time and again that they were capable of incredible things when pushed to the edge. And this time, Mia was determined to prove it once again. The group set out the next morning, navigating through the wreckage of cities and the burning remains of battlefields. Every corner they turned, they expected to see alien ships, but somehow they managed to avoid them. The Gorlax were everywhere, but the humans had learned to move quietly, to stay hidden in the shadows. As they approached the Federation's military outpost, Mia's heart raced. They had to deliver the weapon, but they also had to avoid getting caught. The Gorlax had patrols everywhere, and even one mistake could mean disaster. They reached the outpost just as dusk began to settle in. The soldiers there greeted them with mixed expressions of relief and disbelief. "You actually made it," one of the officers said, looking at the device in Mia's hands. "We've heard about your work. If this can do what you say it can, it might just be our ticket to turning the tide." Mia smiled, though her eyes were tired. "It's not perfect, but it's something. We can only hope it works." The Federation engineers immediately began testing the weapon, making adjustments where needed. Time was running out. The Gorlax were preparing for their final strike, and if this weapon didn't work, Humanity would have no choice but to fight a hopeless battle. As the sun set, the Federation sent out their first coordinated attack using Mia's weapon. The result was nothing short of astonishing. The weapon, though crude, had managed to disrupt the Gorlak shields. For the first time, Earth's forces had a chance to fight back with real power. The Gorlaks were taken by surprise, and the Federation's forces launched a successful counterattack. Mia and her team watched from the command center as the battle unfolded on the monitors. The weapon had worked, but it was only the beginning. The Gorlaks were far from defeated, and the war was far from over. But now, humanity had hope. They had something to fight for, and they had proven that even in the darkest moments, they could come together and create miracles. As the days went by, the victory that humanity had won with the new weapon was both a blessing and a warning. While the Federation and the Resistance forces celebrated their small triumph, they knew the war was far from over. The Gorlaks, though shocked by the success of Earth's counterattack, would not simply give up. They had underestimated humanity before, but they wouldn't make that mistake again. General Kessler and his team were hard at work, trying to find a way to build on their newfound advantage. The Federation's forces had gained some ground, but it wasn't enough. The Gorlak's fleet was still enormous, and their forces were closing in for a final, overwhelming assault on Earth. Kessler knew they had to act quickly or risk losing everything. Mia and her team, meanwhile, had become heroes in the eyes of the people. News of their success had spread across the world, and their bravery had inspired others to join the fight. Mia, though tired and worn from the constant battle, knew that they couldn't stop now. Every day brought new dangers, but every day also brought new opportunities. The Gorlaks had made one mistake. They had underestimated humanity's ability to fight back. Mia's new weapon, though still in its early stages, had become a crucial part of the Federation's strategy. The engineers were working tirelessly to improve it, refining the design and making it more powerful. But they knew it wasn't enough. They needed something more, something that could turn the tide of the war for good. The Gorlaks would not be defeated by small victories alone. One evening, as Mia and her team gathered around a table in the Federation's command center, Kessler approached them with a new mission. His face was grim, his voice serious. "We've received word of a Gorlak's command ship," Kessler said. "It's heavily guarded, but it's also vulnerable. If we can take it out, we'll be able to disrupt the entire Gorlak's fleet. It'll be our best chance at striking a decisive blow." Mia's heart raced. This was the opportunity they had been waiting for. But it was also the most dangerous mission they had ever been given. A command ship was the heart of the Gorlaks' war machine. Destroying it would cripple their entire invasion, but getting to it would not be easy. It would be a suicide mission for most, but for Mia and her team, it was the only option. "We're in," Maya said without hesitation. "We've come this far. We can't stop now." Kessler nodded. "Good. We'll have a small team ready to go, but you'll need to be prepared. The Gorlaks won't let you get close without a fight, and if you fail, Earth could lose its last chance at survival." The next morning, Mia and her team began preparing for the mission. They knew the risks, but they also knew that this was their best shot. If they could destroy the Gorlak's command ship, they could cripple the entire invasion. The Federation's forces, though still outnumbered, would have a fighting chance. Mia worked with Ryan, Lucas, and Sarah to modify their weapons. They knew that the Gorlak ships had powerful shields, and the new weapon they had developed wasn't enough to break through those defenses. They needed something more. They had to get creative. While the Federation engineers worked on improving their missile technology, Mia's group began scavenging for other materials. They dug through old military supplies, looking for anything they could use to enhance their weapons. After hours of work, they had a new plan. They would use a combination of modified explosives and ion disruptors to breach the Gorlak ship's shields. As they prepared for the mission, the Federation began organizing their forces for the final push. General Kessler knew that if Mia's team could take out the command ship, it would give them the opening they needed to strike at the heart of the Gorlak's fleet. But it would be a difficult fight. The Gorlaks were ready for a final assault on Earth, and they would stop at nothing to crush humanity once and for all. The mission to take out the command ship was set for the following evening. As the sun began to set, Mia's team made their way to the launch site. They were joined by a small group of Federation soldiers who would help them infiltrate the Gorlak's fleet. The plan was simple: sneak in, plant the explosives, and get out. But nothing was ever that simple when it came to war. As they neared the launch site, Mia felt a knot form in her stomach. The Gorlaks were ruthless, and they had been getting smarter with each battle. She had seen the destruction they were capable of, and she knew that if they failed, there would be no second chance. But there was no turning back now. The future of Earth depended on this mission. The team boarded the stealth ships, specially designed to evade Gorlak's detection. As they flew toward the Gorlak's fleet, the tension was unbearable. Mia could see the massive Gorlak ships in the distance, their dark shapes looming in the night sky. The Federation had managed to gather enough intelligence to pinpoint the location of the command ship, but they had no idea how heavily guarded it would be. As they neared the target, Mia's heart pounded in her chest. The ships were close now. They could already see the glowing lights of the Gorlak's fleet, and the closer they got, the more danger they were in. The mission was too important to fail. They had no choice but to go forward. When they reached the outskirts of the Gorlak's fleet, Mia's team deployed their stealth suits, blending into the shadows as they slipped past the enemy ships. The plan was working, so far. But as they approached the command ship, disaster struck. One of the Federation soldiers triggered a small alarm, and within seconds, the entire fleet was on high alert. The Gorlak ships began to fire. The stealth ships dodged and weaved through the barrage of energy blasts, but they couldn't hold on forever. Mia's team had to move fast. They dropped to the surface of the command ship, silently moving through the enemy's defenses. Every step felt like it could be their last. They reached the command center, where the Gorlak's officers were coordinating the attack on Earth. Mia and her team planted the explosives and ion disruptors, knowing that once they triggered them, the ship would be destroyed. But just as they prepared to leave, they were surrounded by Gorlak soldiers. The battle for their lives had begun. The explosion rocked the Gorlak's command ship, shaking the very foundations of the alien vessel. The earth beneath Mia's feet trembled as she, Ryan, Lucas, and Sarah fought to keep their balance. They had done it. The bombs and ion disruptors were set. But just as they were about to escape, the alarm sounded. The Gorlaks had realized they had been sabotaged. Mia's heart pounded as the Gorlak soldiers closed in on them. There was no time to waste. They had to get out. But the narrow corridors of the command ship made it almost impossible to move quickly. Every turn brought them closer to more alien soldiers. The team sprinted down the hallway, weapons in hand, firing at anything that moved. Their only chance was to reach the ship's main exit and get back to their stealth ships. "Move," Mia shouted. "We can't stop now." Ryan fired a quick shot at a Gorlak soldier who tried to block their path, buying them a few precious seconds. They had no backup, no reinforcements. The team was alone in the heart of enemy territory. The sound of their footsteps echoed in the empty hallways, followed by the distant roar of the Gorlak soldiers pursuing them. Mia felt the weight of the mission on her shoulders. This was their best chance to deal a blow to the Gorlak's forces. The fate of Earth depended on them making it out alive. But the further they went, the more desperate their situation became. The command ship was massive, and every corner seemed to hold another threat. The Gorlaks were closing in fast. Sarah, the ex-soldier, led the way, her training kicking in as she guided the team through the winding hallways. Lucas, the engineer, was at the back, ensuring that they left no trace of their sabotage behind. They couldn't risk the Gorlaks knowing they were responsible for the attack. The further they got, the more it felt like a race against time. Every minute that passed brought them closer to the Gorlax's reinforcements. The team reached a wide corridor that led to the hangar bay where their stealth ships were parked. They could see the ships in the distance, just beyond the glass walls of the hangar. Maya's pulse quickened. They were so close. Almost there, Ryan said, glancing over his shoulder to make sure no one was following them too closely. We're gonna make it. But as they turned the corner to the hangar entrance, they saw something that made their hearts stop. A massive Gorlax ship was blocking the exit, its weapons primed and ready. They were trapped. Mia's mind raced. They couldn't fight their way out. The Gorlax had more firepower, and they had no chance of winning in a straight fight. But they couldn't stay here. They had to make it out, or all their work would be for nothing. We need a distraction, Maya said urgently. Something to buy us time. Lucas, always quick on his feet, looked around and saw a series of control panels nearby. He had an idea. He ran toward them and began working on the control systems, trying to access the ship's security protocols. Meanwhile, Mia and the others took cover behind a nearby column, watching the massive Gorlax ship in front of them. "Come on, Lucas," Sarah hissed, glancing nervously at the approaching alien soldiers. Lucas's fingers flew across the panels as he worked. It was risky. He was trying to hack into a Gorlax system he had never encountered before. But it was their only shot. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Lucas's face lit up. "Got it," he shouted. "This should do the trick." He pressed a button, and instantly, the lights in the hangar flickered and the doors to the Gorlax ship opened, revealing a series of smaller drones. It was a diversion. The Gorlax ship's automated systems activated the drones, sending them flying toward the exit. The drones, though smaller and less powerful, created enough of a disturbance to force the Gorlax soldiers to focus on the new threat. Without wasting a moment, Mia and her team ran for their ships. The Gorlax soldiers turned to deal with the unexpected drones, giving them the opening they needed. As Mia climbed into the cockpit of her stealth ship, she looked out at the battlefield below. The command ship was now in chaos, with the drones flying all over the hangar, distracting the Gorlax. It was a miracle they had managed to escape. But the mission wasn't over yet. They still had to get back to Earth, and the Gorlax would be hunting them. The team launched their ships, racing through the hangar as the Gorlax fired at them. The ships were fast, but the Gorlax were relentless. A series of blasts exploded just behind them, shaking the ships and sending them into a dangerous spin. Mia fought to regain control as the Gorlax pursued them through the narrow corridors of the command ship. "Hang on," Mia shouted, her voice strained as she pushed the ship to its limits. They had to escape. The Gorlax would never let them go without a fight. Outside, the stars and the dark expanse of space stretched before them, but the Gorlax were right behind them, gaining fast. Mia's hands were steady on the controls, but she could feel the sweat dripping down her face. The mission had been a success, but now they had to survive. As they neared the exit, another Gorlax ship appeared in front of them, cutting off their escape route. The Gorlax were everywhere, and there was no way out. Maya's heart raced as she made a split-second decision. "We're going through," Mia said. "Get ready." With a roar of engines, the stealth ship shot forward, its shields flickering as it slammed into the smaller Gorlax ship in front of them. The impact sent them flying, but it cleared the way to the open space beyond. They broke free from the Gorlax fleet, heading toward Earth, but they knew they weren't safe yet. The Gorlax would keep coming, and this was just the beginning. "Everyone all right?" Maya asked, breathing heavily as she regained control of the ship. "We're good," Ryan replied. "Just don't let go of the controls." They had made it out. The mission was a success, but the Gorlax wouldn't stop chasing them. They had dealt a huge blow to the invaders, but the war was far from over. The real battle was just beginning. As they sped away from the Gorlax fleet, Mia allowed herself a brief moment of relief. They had done it, but as she looked out at the stars, She knew the hardest part was yet to come. Earth was not safe. Not yet. But humanity had proven something today. They were not giving up. Not ever. The journey back to Earth was a blur. Mia's hands trembled as she gripped the controls of the ship, trying to push through the exhaustion that had settled in her body. The adrenaline from their escape had started to wear off, and now all that was left was the harsh reality of what they had just done. They had struck a powerful blow to the Gorlax forces, but the victory had come at a cost. The Gorlax were not the kind of enemies to let something like this slide. Mia knew that the moment they returned to Earth, the real battle would begin. The aliens would stop at nothing to hunt them down, to wipe out humanity once and for all. But for now, they had survived. For now, they had a chance. As their ships entered Earth's atmosphere, the sight of their home planet made Mia feel a rush of emotion. She hadn't realized just how much she had missed it. The green oceans, the swirling clouds, and the bright blue sky, things she had taken for granted before the war. Now they felt like a lifeline. She wasn't just fighting for her survival. She was fighting for the survival of everyone on Earth. Approaching Earth, Ryan's voice came over the comms. "We've got company." Mia's heart skipped a beat. It was no surprise that the Gorlax had sent their forces after them, but she hadn't expected them to be so close. A large Gorlax fleet was looming in space, just beyond the atmosphere. They were waiting for Mia and her team to return, to finish what they had started. "I'm going to make a run for it," Maya said, determination flooding her voice. "We can't let them catch us. We've got to make it back to the Federation base." The team quickly aligned their ships, heading toward Earth's surface. The Gorlax were right behind them, firing energy blasts that lit up the space around them. Mia's ship shook with each blast, but she pushed forward, knowing that if they didn't get past the Gorlax now, the battle would be over before it had even begun. The ground was close now. Maya saw the Federation base just ahead, a massive military facility surrounded by defenses. It was their only hope. If they could reach the base, they could regroup, resupply, and prepare for the final push against the Gorlax. But getting there wouldn't be easy. "We're almost there," Sarah called out, her voice full of urgency. "Push through." Mia gritted her teeth as she navigated her ship through the barrage of Gorlax fire. Every twist and turn took all of her focus. The Gorlax were closing in fast, and their weapons were powerful. Mia knew she had to get past them. The fate of Earth depended on it. Just as they neared the Federation base, a large Gorlax warship appeared in front of them, blocking their path. The enemy was trying to trap them. Mia's heart raced. There was no way around it. Without thinking, Mia made a sharp turn, diving toward the ground. The ship plummeted through the atmosphere, its shield struggling to protect them from the heat of re-entry. The Gorlax fired relentlessly, but Mia pushed the ship to its limits, dodging and weaving through the incoming blasts. Her team followed closely behind, staying close but keeping their distance from the enemy ships. For a moment, it felt like they were flying straight into the heart of the storm. But Mia held on, her mind focused on the Federation base below. They couldn't stop now. The Gorlax would do everything they could to destroy them, but Maya refused to let them win. With a burst of speed, Maya shot through the atmosphere, breaking free from the Gorlax's fire. The Federation base was right below them now. They had made it. As they descended toward the base, the team prepared for a hard landing. The air was thick with smoke and debris, and the ground was shaking beneath them. But the Federation soldiers were ready. They greeted Mia and her team with cheers, but there was no time for celebration. The Gorlax were still coming. "We've got a limited amount of time before they catch up," General Kessler said, his face grim. "We need to move fast. The Gorlax won't let us off easy." Mia nodded, her mind already working. They had the weapon. They had the technology. But they needed more. They needed a plan. "We'll have to work together," Maya said, turning to the team. "We can't take them on alone. We need to hit them where it hurts, at the heart of their fleet." Kessler agreed. The Federation was still recovering, but they had enough resources to launch a final strike. Mia's team, along with the Federation's best soldiers, would lead the charge. They would make sure the Gorlaks didn't have a chance to regroup. The next few days were a blur of preparation and strategy. Mia and her team worked with the Federation's engineers to refine the weapon they had created, making it stronger and more efficient. Meanwhile, the Federation soldiers trained and got ready for the final assault. When the time came, Maya felt a rush of determination like never before. The Gorlaks had invaded Earth, destroyed cities, killed millions, but they had underestimated humanity. They had underestimated the will of the people. And now it was time for payback. Mia's team boarded their ships one last time, ready for the final battle. The Federation's fleet, armed with their new weapon, joined them in the skies. Together, they would strike at the heart of the Gorlaks' invasion force. The battle was fierce. The Gorlaks fought with everything they had, but the humans were relentless. With every blast, with every maneuver, they pushed the Gorlaks back. Maya and her team led the charge, using the weapon they had developed to disable the Gorlaks' shields, allowing the Federation's fleet to take down their ships one by one. The skies above Earth were filled with explosions and fire as the Gorlaks' fleet began to crumble. But the fight was far from over. There was still one last challenge. At the center of the Gorlaks' fleet, their largest ship, the flagship, was still intact. It was massive, heavily armored, and bristling with weapons. It would take everything they had to take it down. Mia led the charge, her heart pounding as they neared the flagship. The Gorlaks fired everything they had, but the humans were faster, smarter. They had the advantage now. With one final push, Mia's team launched the last of their weaponry. The flagship's shields collapsed, and with a single powerful strike, the ship exploded in a brilliant flash of light. The Gorlaks' fleet was no more. Earth had won. As Mia and her team watched from their ships, the remnants of the Gorlaks' fleet drifted into the void. The war was over. They had lost so much, but they had also gained something priceless: their freedom. The people of Earth had proven that no matter how overwhelming the enemy, no matter how impossible the odds, they would never give up. Humanity had chosen to stay, and in the end, they had triumphed.